Bend it, shape it, make it your own. Wire is wonderful with beads or alone. So join me today while we wrap and we twist, creating wire art you can wear on your wrist. Hi, welcome to Jewel School. I'm Dale Cougar Armstrong. I'm a lapidary, wire jewelry artist, author, and instructor. You know, I've loved rocks and minerals all my entire life, but I think probably my favorite medium is wire because you can use wire to turn all of those things into jewelry. And today in Jewel School, I'm going to teach you how to use wire to make two beautiful, totally different bracelets. We'll learn a simple technique that you'll repeat to make this fun stirrup link bracelet. Then we'll tackle a project that's just a bit more complicated to make this traditional wire bangle with a self-closure. Now, to make our bracelets today, you're going to need a few basic hand tools, one kind of fun power tool, and a few items that you might find around your house. So to talk a little bit about the tools that we'll be using, these are flat nose pliers, okay? They have square tips. They need to be 90 degrees up and down all of the surfaces of the jaw. We'll also have an occasion to use the chain nose pliers. Chain nose pliers are round on the outside and flat on the inside, so they give a nice grip. Round nose pliers are just that. They are round from one end to the other, usually graduated. And of course, we're working with wire. We're going to need a way to cut it, so wire cutters are important. Now, in addition to that, you're also going to be using a sliding thumb pin vise, okay? However, we have a lot of wire to twist today, so I'm also going to introduce you to a little power drill. But if you don't have one, don't panic, it's okay. I'm going to teach you how to use both tools. Now, some of the found items I mentioned, one would be just a plain old emery board for deburring wire. I also usually have at least 2 different colored markers. I like a fine point, and the reason I have more than one color is if I mess up bad on something with one, I can just remark it in a different color. One of my favorite found items is my shaping tool. Okay, I don't own a bracelet mandrel, and I've been making bracelets for many, many years. Because this works just fine. This is just a medicine bottle. I'll give you the dimensions later. It's a little bit flexible so that we can use it to shape things. The tape that I'm going to use today is 1/4 inch quilter's tape, okay? You don't have to have quilter's tape. You can also use a painter's tape, just something that will not leave a lot of residue on your wire, but has a good holding power in the same time. This is a piece of polishing cloth. I'm going to use it to protect my fingers. You don't need a polishing cloth. You can use a piece of t-shirt, just something with no lint. My ruler is just a translucent plastic back-to-school ruler. It has both inches and millimeters. As you begin to work more with wire, if you like it as much as I do, with beads and gemstones, you'll need to know the sizes, which are usually measured in millimeters. The mouse pad that I am known for using has a little bit of extra cushion to it. It's a cushion style, so that if you stick with this art form, you're going to need something like the medicine bottle that has some give but is still firm. Now, as far as magnification and eye protection goes, I do recommend that you either wear a pair of clear glasses, these are my cheaters, or if you wear some safety glasses, that would help. As my eyes get tired, I often use my Optivisors, so we're going to talk a little bit about those today because this is a possibility for you if you really want to see what you're doing. Okay, the wire that we're using today, I'm using 2 different kinds of wire, okay? This is an 18 gauge half round, half hard wire. This means that they have taken a round wire and cut it in half. So this wire actually, if looked at on the end, I'll need these to do that with, would look like a half a moon, okay? It is half round. We also have 21 gauge square, half hard. Just as I mentioned, it's square in shape, it's not round. And the half hard that I talk about is actually the temper or the hardness of the wire. which describes how much spring the wire has. For example, if we had something that was a dead soft, you couldn't make a bracelet with it because it wouldn't hold up. But a half-hard temper will last forever and ever and ever as a bracelet. So, are you ready? Let's begin our first project. The first bracelet that we're going to make today can either be called the horseshoe link bracelet or the stirrup link bracelet. And I'm going to show you why, okay? Each of these links, although very, very fluid, this is really fun, looks almost like a horseshoe. However, when I make them, and I'm going to teach you to press them in slightly, they almost become a teardrop shape. We're going to add a little bit of flash of color. The sample that I have here, that's so much fun to play with, really, is made out of copper with just clear crystal beads. And the one I'm going to make in class teaching you today is going to be done in silver with these gorgeous blue aqua beads. Now, the first thing you need to know is, how long do I need to make my bracelet? Well, that depends on how big your wrist is. Most bracelets that I design for people or for myself, I usually make about 1/2 inch larger than measuring over the top of my arm, right at this little bone right here, okay? In this way, the bracelet falls just to the top of the hand, and it doesn't drag or catch on anything. When you make a linked bracelet, which, by the way, this would make a really gorgeous choker as well, as my daughter told me, you kind of need to know how long you want your bracelet to be, besides being tight around the wrist, okay? We need this thing to move a little bit. Each link, when it's finished, is about 3/4 of an inch long. So if you have a 7-inch wrist, okay, like mine, I've made 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Okay, I made 13 links for a 7-inch wrist. Therefore, if you have a smaller or larger, let's begin by making a total of 6 links and then add to them as we need to. The first thing I have to do is to prepare my wire. Okay, now you may not panic, okay, thinking, oh geez, Dale, you want me to straighten all that wire? No, I'm just gonna take this cloth, which could be my t-shirt, and if you notice, I'm not straightening this wire, I'm just running it through it to kind of clean a little bit. You know, in handling the factories, they get kind of nasty. All right, so using my ruler and my wire and not worrying about whether or not this is straight, I'm going to begin by using a 12 1/4 inch piece. So I'm just going to do my 12 inches plus a little bit. And the reason I'm making that difference is because we always don't want to use the part of wire that's not twisted. So, introducing my buddy, the drill. This is very cool. This one has a forward and a reverse. It really doesn't matter. You can borrow your husband's, or gentlemen, you can bring it in to share with your girlfriend or your wife. And I'm going to open up the chuck here. You just need to make sure that your chuck will close down small enough to put your wire into. I'm going to take the end of my wire and I'm going to place about 1/8 of an inch, that's 2 little marks on your ruler, into the center of the chuck. I'm going to spin this closed, make sure it's good and tight. Put my glasses on because I'm not a starfish. I cannot regenerate my eyes. And I'm going to use my flat nose pliers to hold the other end of wire. Now, as you know, you don't want to pull the wire because you'll pull it out of the drill possibly. So I'm going to hold my pliers in a vertical position, up and down. Notice I've placed my wire about 2/3 of the way down into my tool. If I were to place it way up near the top, I'd have to hold very tightly. Okay, now I'm just going to hit the button on the drill and let's twist this wire. It's pretty good. That's pretty tight. By the way, you can over twist your wire and break the end of it off. And if your drill doesn't spin down close enough to hold a small wire like this, simply put your pin vise into your drill. And there you have an end that you can open and close to hold your small wire. Okay, let's get rid of the untwisted ends, for which we had allowed 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch of wire for. And now I'm going to measure and cut 2 inches. I only need 2 inches of twisted wire for each link of my bracelet. and I only have to measure and cut this once with a ruler. So if I lay my wire alongside the edge of my ruler, and keep in mind that everything I do when I make wire jewelry, I have to see. Therefore, everything from the flat side of my cutter up, I'm going to keep. I'm going to cut my wire at 2 inches. And then I'm going to use the one I cut to measure and cut my second and subsequent wires. Okay, now, as I promised, if you don't have a drill, let's just use the pin vise, okay? But I'm not going to do a 12-inch piece. If I had on blue jeans, I could roll it down my leg, but I don't. So let's cut a piece that's a little more than 4 inches long. Again, to compensate for untwisted ends. I'm going to place the wire into my pin vise by sliding the nut back, putting my wire into the center, about 1/8 of an inch, and then sliding the nut back up with my thumb, thus the name. And I will tell you that the new pin vices are a little bit stiff. Don't be afraid to tighten them up until they become more broken in. Now I'm going to hold the other end of my wire in the same fashion as I did when I used the drill, and I'm simply going to twist my pin vise in a clockwise direction until I have twisted the wire to the bead that I desire, or, again, to look like it's been diamond cut. Okay, that's about good. And because I cut this 4 inches long plus a little, let's take off one untwisted end and use my pliers to cut, again, everything from the flat side I'm keeping, and cut off the second untwisted end. All right, there we go. Now, I have all of my length wires ready. Let's learn to make the links. Okay, so to make every single link, we know that we need a 2-inch piece of wire. However, we're also going to need to do something special with our round nose pliers. Okay, if you'll notice on my round nose pliers, I actually have them marked. Okay, these marks are extremely important so that I can make my links the same every single time. So let's put on my glasses so I can see what I'm doing again. And what I would like you to do is, on your ruler, if you have one like I asked, you'll have both your inches and your millimeters, okay? What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to take the end of the jaw of your plier and place it on the ruler so that you go up 2 little marks down from the tip of the plier. I'd like you to use your magic marker, and I would like you to make a mark across your pliers right there, okay? Now let's go down from the tip to a total of 4 marks, or 4 millimeters, and make another mark across your pliers right there, okay? Now, the reason that I do this is because I'm going to be making link connections at the end of every single wire, and they kind of have to be the same. Okay, so to make our links, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shape these around my marker. And I'm going to take a 2-inch piece of wire, I'm going to place it on my marker, which, by the way, is 10 millimeters in diameter. So if you were to find an item and measure it across, it was 10 millimeters, then you could make links the exact same size as mine. However, they don't need to be. They can be a little bit larger, a little bit smaller, and to tell the truth, mine don't always come out the same size either. Okay, so by holding my wire on my shaping item, which happens to be my marker, I'm going to bend both sides of the wire at the same time. Now, if we look, you can see that this is almost a perfect U. Not quite almost. So I'm going to press on each side until I have a U and my legs are about the same length. Now I have to add a bead. Okay, I have a choice of either a 6 millimeter or an 8 millimeter bead, only because those are the sizes I chose, okay? You can use whatever size you would like. But I wanted to talk a little bit about design. If I have this 6 millimeter here, even on a large wrist like mine, that doesn't look too bad. It's kind of like a fairy bracelet. And if I were to use the 8 millimeter, because this is a 21 gauge wire, okay, well, actually, that's not too bad. I think I'll stick with the 6, though. Yeah, I'll go with 6. You can use 8 if you want. So I'm going to take my bead, and place my bead, which by the way is a rondelle in shape, meaning that it's flat on the top and the bottom and kind of bulgy around the sides. I'm going to put my bead on my wire, and then I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to place the tip of the wire at the number 2 mark, which was the 4 millimeters I'd asked you to make. I'm going to hold the wire so that I can't feel it on the outside of my tool, meaning that when I roll my pliers, until I can go no further because my jaw got in the way, I'm going to spin my tool back still at the 2nd mark, tighten my grip, and grab some more wire, rolling it completely, making a perfect circle, okay? Now I'm going to do the same procedure on the other side. This time I'm going to roll away from me. So placing my tool again at the number 2 mark on the end of my wire, can't feel it, I'm going to roll my link until I can go no further. I'm going to spin my tool back around, keeping it at the same number 2 mark, tighten up, add some more wire, forming a 2nd circle. Now, my connection links really need to be standing up and not off to the side. To make that happen, I'm going to again put my tool in up to the same mark, number 2, and on the front, I'm going to roll my tool, placing the circle at the very top center, almost like an eye. I'm going to do this on the other side as well. And now I have 2 eyes that are open. That's perfect. It's ready for the next link. So let's see if we can do the next link without me telling you what to do. Nah, I'll tell you again. Place your wire on your tool. Bend each side equally so that the legs come out the same length. Add a bead to your wire and make your connection links. Using the number 2 space on your pliers, so that you can't feel the wire. Otherwise, you can end up with the letter P. Okay, roll your tool. When you cannot go any further, bring it back, grab some more wire, continue your roll, and then open your circle up and center it. And do that on both sides. Now, while I'm doing this, you may notice my hand moves in one direction or the other. It's because I like to protect my hands and I know which way they want to move. So often you can save yourself. Okay, now I have my connections. I'm going to use my chain nose pliers. They're flat on the inside and round on the outside, so they have some gripping power. I'm going to slightly open the links that I made by bending them to the sides. I'm going to place the 2nd link I made onto the 1st one so that the link closures are headed in the same direction, meaning I don't want to put one on backwards, okay? And you see how they're wrapped around the stirrup I first made? Now let's close them. To close them, I'm going to use my chain nose pliers again and carefully bend the lip back, and then I'm just going to tuck it in. So I've already given the wire direction, and if I just touch it, it pushes it in the direction that I want it to go in. Let's repeat this on the other side. Okay, go ahead and close the loop. Tip it back. Okay. Now, to get that teardrop shape I spoke of, I'm going to hold the 2nd link and I'm going to slightly pinch the sides together on each side of the bead. Okay, and there we have the link bracelet starting with the blue crystals. It's going to be really pretty. All right, so go ahead and continue making your links. If you need to, glance up at the screen and watch me and work along with me. And let's make another 6 or 7 or 8 links and see how we're going to finish this bracelet by making our own wrapped hook. Okay, so the second half of this bracelet, I have made all of my pieces in a production style, and now I'm going to connect them all together here. And let's see how quickly we can make this happen. Not. Please, take your time anytime you do anything that's handmade, especially if you're working with a precious metal. Really don't want to waste the metals. And by the way, if you do have some scrap, don't throw it away. That's like throwing your dimes or your silver coins into the trash can. This is precious metal. It is worth something. Keep your scraps, and when you have enough of them, you can actually turn them in to the people who take back, we buy gold, we buy silver. Actually, JTV does that. Yeah. You could send your precious metal back to JTV and get a refund towards your next supply order. That'd be pretty cool. Okay, so if I was going to make this bracelet to fit me, which I am, haha, I'll probably end up giving it away, I usually do, then I have made enough links. And it's time to connect my last link, which will become the eye of my closure. Now, to do that, I'm going to use one of these links that does not have a bead on it because that's where my hook is going to go. And I don't want my hook sliding around. I'm going to make my link like I normally do. I'm just not adding a bead. And I just came up with a way cool idea too. I'll tell you about it in a minute. So let's put this last link on here without a bead. And that's going to give me that little additional length that I need so that it doesn't pinch my arm too tightly. Because if a bracelet is uncomfortable, somebody's not going to wear it. And most of the people who make bracelets or buy bracelets are between the ages of like 35 and 65, and they're professionals. And they like to watch their arms, so they actually buy bracelets for themselves. Okay, there we go. So my bracelet chain link part is done. And this is what I just thought about before I get into the hook. I have these 2 extra links, so you know what? I think later I'm simply going to put them together and put them each onto their own little jump ring and attach an ear wire, and I've got a pair of matching earrings. Okay, that was the idea of the hour. Now, let's go on and make our hook. Now, the hook I'm going to teach you to make can actually be used in many other jewelry making applications. If you like to string beads and you need to buy a hook, after this, you won't have to buy one. You can make your own. To make this hook, which is going to be a double wrapped hook, I'm going to need 21 gauge square half hard wire. Now, you can make this in round wire, but if you can do it in square, you can do anything, okay? Round wire is easy. So my theory is if I teach you the most difficult way I know how, you're gonna get it, you're gonna be able to do it again, and you're gonna be good. So let's cut one piece of wire 6 inches long. And remember earlier I had you mark your round nose pliers in 2 locations, and we used the second location at 4 millimeters to make our links. Now you're going to use the first location, which is the 2 millimeter down mark. I'm going to find the center of my wire, which will be at 3 inches. And if you want, you can mark this, but I think that you're, experienced enough now to just pick this up. Use your pliers, place it on the center of your wire, okay? And I'm going to bend this wire equally over the jaw of my plier at the number 1 mark. Now, when I get to this point, I can see that this leg is going to be longer than that one, so I'm going to press on it and not the other one. Okay, it was still a little bit longer. Let's move this one back and this one toward it. And we have really, really lessened the difference right there. Okay, now we're going to keyhole this. When we make a keyhole on this wire, this is actually going to form the lock on the end of your hook that prevents it from slipping out of the eye as easily as it would without one. I'm going to put my pliers inside my loop that I just made. I'm going to keep a loose grip so I can still roll them. I'm going to roll my pliers toward one side. Now, when this part of the jaw hits that wire, it's going to stop. I have resistance. So I'm going to tighten up my wire and force a dip into that. And it looks like a drunken pea. You see that? Now what I'm going to do is go back into the other side, because my hand likes to go like that. And I'm going to create a second dip to match. Need to tidy that up just a little bit. Now, do you see where this resembles an old-fashioned keyhole? Okay, that's why this technique is called the keyhole technique. That's also the lock end of your hook. So to continue making your hook, I'm going to measure down from the very top of my keyhole to 1/2 inch and mark my wires. This is just going to be a reference point. Okay. Now at that reference point, let's use the round nose pliers, and I'm going to take them so that my wire is about halfway between the end and the beginning of the jaw, and I'm going to roll the hook end toward the length. Now we have a hook emerging, okay? Use your flat nose pliers to take one of the legs and bend it out away from the hook at a 90-degree angle. And you'll notice that my pliers are placed about 1/8 of an inch away from the top of my lock. Okay, so I've made a 90-degree angle on the one wire. I'm going to repeat this on the second wire, but I'm going to go down again about 1/8 of an inch. Do you see the difference between this angle I've made and where I'm going to make my next one? It's about 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so let's go ahead and bend that wire 90 degrees to the other side. Okay. Now, on the second bend that you made, you're going to use your round nose pliers, and you're going to use them about 1/3 of the way down. Okay, if I measure 1/2, so this is about 1/3 of the way down, I'm going to place them inside my angle and use my finger to bend this wire up over the top, back down the other side. I can't go any further because my tool's in the way. So I'm going to rotate my tool, hold on to it, and bend my wire completely around the jaw of the plier, making a perfect loop. Now I'm going to use my flat nose pliers to bend that wire, the tail, back up the way that it originally came. First I'm going to trim it because it's a little bit long. So let's cut this to about 1/2 inch long. Okay, it's just shy of 1/2 inch long. And I'm going to use my flat nose pliers to bend this tail back up the way it came. Okay, so you can see this. I'm going to hold the eye, okay, with my other tool. There you go. Otherwise my fingers get in your way. Now I'm going to use this other longer wire to wrap those two wires together. I'm going to begin up here at the top and bring them down and wrap toward the eye that I just made at the bottom. To do that, I'm going to have to hold these wires in place with the flat nose pliers, and I'm going to use my dominant hand to wrap this wire. Let's get that in there a little more. Okay, to wrap this wire around the two. Now, if your tail is not as long as this, you can always use your other pair of pliers, whichever one you're not holding with. In this case, I have my chain nose. I'm going to use those when it gets down there tight. Okay. Make your wraps, trim your wire. And it's not going to look exactly pretty right now because we have a little bit of adjusting to do. To do the adjustments, we're going to use the flat nose pliers. I'm going to simply press this wire back where it needs to be. I'm going to trim the rest of the tail. You know what? I can't see that right now, so I am going to put on my optivisors. I told you all this earlier, and this is exactly what this is for. Okay, now I can see what I'm doing. And let's trim this wire. Okay, now I can see to bend this wire back further where it belongs. And I've got a hook going on. Now where the lock is, let's make that a little more prominent. Okay, I usually do this on a table, but so you can see it, I'm going to do this in the air. I'm going to use the tips of my round nose pliers. And just on the back side of where I did the keyhole lock, I'm going to simply roll the lock up just a little bit. Okay. And now let's bounce this down. And now you see we look more like a hook. Now, where does this hook go? Okay, it goes at the other end of our bracelet where we would normally put another link, okay? Remember the two ends of the stirrup? What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring those two together and I'm going to insert those both into my hook. Okay, so up here where I have my connection loops, I'm going to make them ready by using my flat nose pliers. I'm going to bend each of them out. Okay, let's bend the other one out, away. There we go. Now I'm going to bring them together. And let's put them into the hook. Now, here's a decision you have to make, okay? And it really doesn't matter if you're right-handed or left-handed. What side are you going to put your hook on? Do you want to put it against your skin, or do you want to put it away from your skin? Tell you, I like putting mine away from the skin because if it's down and you lean your hand down, it's going to dig into your arm, but the choice is totally yours, okay? Also, when I have a bracelet like this with the hook on the outside, it is very easy for somebody to put this off and on with one hand, okay? So I could just go like this and slip this bracelet right on. I can also take it off the same way. So people with arthritis or people who live alone will be able to put their jewelry off and on by themselves. But again, the choice is yours. Now, to connect this, I'm going to take my links, place them inside the eye I made at the bottom of my hook. I'll turn that around so you can see it here. Okay, just like that. And I'm going to close them. Now, the right tool for the right job is very important. If you choose, you can use your round nose pliers. However, I like to use my chain nose pliers because they have a nice flat grip inside and these little pointing nose to get into small places. Okay, that is connected. And see, that kind of changed the shape of that too. What's fun here is if you want to, when you play with these, as I said earlier, you can make them any size you want. Large, small, teardrops, round, oval, doesn't matter. The concept is the same. And there you have it, we're done. I have no idea what color you chose, but I'm awfully glad that I put those aqua blue beads with this silver. Now I want to talk to you about a couple other things too. You've just learned how to make the link, the hook, and we talked about some variations as opposed to the length of the hook, the size of the hook, the length of the link, the size of the link. And did you know that if you made 3 different size links and put them together, you could make my lucky earrings? These have also been called the swinging chandeliers, and that's all they are, is 3 different size links of the Stirrup bracelet. So, I hope you had a good time with that one. Let's get ready for our next project. You know, this next project is actually a favorite beginner's project of mine. Any bracelet or any item that involves a lot of straightening of wire, a lot of bundling, and a lot of repetition with making wraps is a favorite project of mine for beginners because it gives you a lot of practice. And this particular bracelet happens to be a favorite because it contains a self hook and eye, meaning the hook and the eye are contained within the main construction of the bangle. Now to begin, I'm going to add 2 more found tools to your collection. One is going to be, yes, it's time now to use the measuring bottle, so get it out. And the second is a cloth tape measure. Now, if you don't have a cloth tape measure, I actually have had people measure the distance I'm going to tell you with a piece of ribbon and mail it to me. So you could measure yourself with a piece of ribbon and then measure the ribbon on a ruler. You're going to measure your wrist right around the top little bone right here, okay? Now write that number down because I'm going to be giving you the formulas for a bracelet. The construction of the bracelet involves 3 different lengths of wires. The main construction wires are represented in this particular bracelet by copper. And the formula for those is wrist plus ½ inch. So when we get ready, you will want to straighten, measure, and cut 4 pieces of wire, each formula length, which is wrist plus ½ inch. Okay, you wrote that down, right? Good. Now, next, we have 2 more pieces of wire. One is the eye, okay? The eye wire is formula times 2 plus ½ inch, meaning your wrist plus the ½ inch times 2 plus ½ inch. So let's use a whole number. If your wrist is 10 inches, then that's 10½ times 2, that's 20 and 2/2, which is 21. And we're going to add a ½ inch to that, all right? Good. The last wire that you'll need is also a long wire, and that is the hook wire, okay? And the hook wire is actually formula times 2 plus 1 inch. So we're doing the same formula that we did for the eye wire, but we're adding an entire inch instead of just a half. So, you ready? Good. Let's get your 21 gauge square half hard wire, and let's begin preparing the wire. Now here is where the practice comes in, okay? It is very, very important that you get these wires as perfectly straight as you possibly can, okay? It's just really, really important because to make a bundle that these wires go into, they have to be straight or they're gonna push away from their friends. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to straighten my wire, and I'm gonna use my hand the first time, okay? So that you can see what I'm doing, and I'm gonna talk you through it, and then we're gonna get close up and I'm gonna show you a little more detail. So, with the curve of the wire facing away from you, okay, I'm going to use my index finger and my thumb, and I'm going to put them together like this, not like this means pinching, rather like this. Now I'm going to actually put my thumb on top of the curve and put my index finger under the curve. Even in this position, if I roll my index finger over the edge of my thumb, you can see I'm going to be countering the curve. So let's start with that. Okay, I'm going to place my thumb here, my index finger here, and I'm going to draw this wire through my fingers, making it straight. And that's not quite straight, so I'm going to do the exact same procedure again, but I'm going to move my hand to counter the curve. Okay, now that's pretty darn straight. Let's measure and cut the wire to formula length, which once again is wrist plus ½ inch. So if my wrist was 7 inches, then I would be cutting my wire 7½ inches long. I'm going to lay my straight wire alongside my ruler, use my cutters so that everything from the flat side up is what I want to keep. I'm going to cut my first wire. Don't need the ruler again for a minute because remember, I need 4 wires, formula length. So I'm going to use my first one to cut my next 3. So let's go ahead and straighten, measure and cut 3 more pieces that are formula length. Now I promised you we're going to show you how to get this wire straight a little close up, so let me get it positioned. Here we go. And what I'm doing here off camera, really what you can't see, is I'm putting this coil between my knees, because in this way I can keep the curve of the wire headed in the direction I want it, which is away from me. Okay, so placing the thumb and the forefinger here, not pinching. Let's see if I can make this happen so you can see it happen. Okay, I'm just going to put a little bit of pressure down. Okay, pretty darn straight. Let's do it one more time just to make sure. And now I'm going to take the first wire I cut, place it next to the second, and make my cut so I have 2 pieces of wire formula length now. Now straighten, clean, and then cut 2 more pieces of wire. Okay, so I have 4 pieces formula length. Now, here comes the long stuff. I need 2 long pieces, remember? One of them is my hook wire, and that was formula times 2 plus 1 inch. So if you've got your number down, I can tell you that I need 16 inches. This is a goodly amount of wire, and this is kind of springy. So I'm not going to worry about fully straightening it. I'm just going to kind of do a little bit so that I can more easily measure it. So let me measure my 16 inches. If I'm off by 1/4 of an inch, it's not so bad. It's my 16 inch. Okay, and that's my hook wire. Now my eye wire is formula times 2 plus just a 1/2 an inch. So that's only 15.5 inches. Still a goodly length of wire, right? So let's go ahead and measure and cut the eye wire. Make sure you use your numbers, not mine, unless you have a 7-inch wrist. Okay, I have all of the square wire I need ready. And now I'm going to twist these long wires, which is why I didn't worry about straightening them, because twisting this wire is going to straighten it right out, besides giving it a really pretty diamond cut bead. So again, open up your drill, place the end of your wire in, tighten up your drill, and hold the other end of the wire with flat nose pliers, held vertically, with your wire about 2/3 of the way down inside the jaw of your plier. And go ahead and twist. That looks pretty good. So that's the eye wire. I'm going to put this right here so I remember. And I'm going to twist the hook wire. Now remember, if you don't have a drill, you can always put your wire in your pin vise. And you can roll your pin vise down the legs of your blue jeans while holding the other side of the wire with your flat nose pliers. It works beautifully. And if you have a drill whose chuck doesn't spin down small enough to hold this small wire, simply put your pin vise in your chuck. Tighten it up and use it to hold and twist your wire. Okay, this is my hook wire. Okay, it's like magic, huh? Nice and straight. Okay, so now the hook wire, let's look at this again. I'm going to show you something. When I chose the width of this bracelet, it was basically to fit my tools because it was a new design, okay? And I wanted to make sure everything was going to work. If you've heard me before, you know that often I use the width of my tool instead of a measurement or a ruler. Okay, so if I take my pliers here and place it over my bundle, you'll see that really these flat nose pliers are the width of the bundle, which makes it the perfect size to make this hook. So I'm going to take my wire, let's say the longer one was the hook wire, so I need the shorter one, which is the eye, and I'm going to find the center. Now watch this, okay? Finding the center is really easy. I'm simply going to bend this wire in half, meeting the ends. Draw the wire slowly up my hands together. Here's kind of my center. Now let's take the flat nose pliers, because we know they're the perfect size width, and let's put that in the center of my wire. And I'm going to bend my wire down each side, making a 90-degree angle on each side. And there you go. Well, that one's a little crooked. So let's fix that. I'm going to go back in here and simply bend my wire back. Okay, there's the eye to our bracelet. I can set that aside. And now I have to go to my hook wire. Once again, I'm going to fold my wire in half, match my ends, draw the wire up through my fingers carefully. Okay, there's about my center. Now this time, I'm going to make a keyhole. Okay, do you remember making the keyhole in the previous bracelet? If you don't, here we go. I'm going to take the ends of my pliers, my round nose, place it into the center of my wire, bend the wire tightly across it, and then I'm going to roll my tool until I feel resistance, tighten it up, and dip. Okay, I'm going to turn my drunken pea to the other side. You see that? And I'm going to come in here and repeat the movement so that I have almost like an old-fashioned keyhole type shape. Now this is actually going to become the lock at the end of our hook, okay? So using my flat nose pliers, I have to put these wires together at the bottom of my keyhole because I'm going to be treating this wire like it were two individual wires. Okay, let's assemble the bracelet and make a bundle. To do that, we're going to have to prepare 4 pieces of tape. Now the reason I'm having you do 4 is because if you're prepared, nothing happens. Now, to prepare the tape, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tear off a piece about 1.25 inches to 1.5 inches long, and I'm going to make sure that I have a tabbed end. Now, I always store my tape that way, so I can't show you on this one, but I will on the next. Okay, a tabbed end means I'm going to take the end of the tape, fold it over onto itself, so I have a tabbed end I can hold that doesn't stick to me. Then I'm going to tear it down and tear off my second piece. Now I'm placing these on my ruler because they'll come off and on easily. You can also use the edge of your workbench, a table, just anything really that the tape will peel off and on. So go ahead and prepare 4 pieces of tape. Okay, so let's assemble our bracelet. The eye is going to be the outside of our bracelet, and the hook is going to be the center or the middle. And around those two, we're going to have the plain wires. Now, I did my sample in copper and silver, so you can see the difference of all the different pieces I'm talking about in color, okay? You see the outer edge is actually the eye wire, and the center 2 twisted wires is actually the hook wire. So go ahead and take your 4 plain wires, and here's the little tricky part, okay? Let's tap them down, and if they're not as straight as you would like them to be, it's okay. Just make sure that you move them around so they all go in the same direction. So if you have waves and all the waves go in the same direction, you should be able to make them go straight. Okay, for example here, and if I just draw these gently up through my fingers, you see how they all go together straight and they're not fighting one another? That's what I mean. Okay, so I'm going to take my hook wire and I'm going to place it between my plain wires and tuck it all the way down to the end. Okay, so I have one flush end. Now, I'm going to turn this around so that I can take the eye wire and place it over the end and slide this down. You may wonder how far to slide it. All the way, okay? Slide it all the way down so that all of your construction wires and the ends of your hook wire are sandwiched between. just like that. Now let's tape. Taping is very important. You need to tape properly so that you can remove the tape easily and not fight and bend your wire possibly. To tape, I'm going to place my tape across the end of my bundle so that a little of the sticky stuff is still hanging out. Now I'm going to fold that over onto the back of my bundle and press it down. You see? So the sticky part sticks to the wire, not to the tape. This gives this an anchor so that I can apply a little bit of tension to this and pull the wire together and press it down. Little tension around the backside, press it down. And there we go, okay? My whole bundle is held together right now by just that one piece of tape. After I have done that, I'm going to hold on to that tape, draw the wire up through my hands, keeping it together, and I'm going to continue to tape until I get to the other end. So now you have a taped bracelet bundle. And this is where we're going to start, and believe it or not, now you can probably see how this is going to become your bracelet. All right, so now we're going to start measuring. I'm going to teach you how to measure the way I do, hoping to instill good work habits. It has been my experience that if you look over a ruler, like most people want to measure up here, you're actually giving yourself an optical illusion, as you know, both of our eyes don't look at things in the same way all the time. So I'm going to put my bundle between me and the ruler. This way I'm not looking over it, okay? I'm going to get more of an accurate measurement. And I'm going to start at the flush end where my eye is over the end of my bundle, okay? And I'm going to measure back 1/2 inch and make a mark across my bundle, just like that. Now I'm going to spin this like a propeller. So I'm still looking at the back, which is now the side that I've made my marks on. And I'm going to take the other end, and I'm going to measure from the shortest wire down toward the center, 1/2 inch. From the shortest wire down 1/2 inch and make a mark. Okay, now let's measure the distance between the two marks you just made, which actually should be like just about 1/2 inch smaller than your wrist size, if you just want to check yourself. Okay, so find the center and mark it. Okay, so take that center mark that we made and put it on any whole number. I like the number 3. So let's just put it on the number 3 because it's a nice whole number. And now I want you to measure 1 inch on each side of the center and make a mark. So if my, we're all using hopefully the number 3, rulers on the number 3, I'm going to go down and make a mark at number 2 and go down and make a mark at number 4. All right, good deal. Go ahead and cover up your marker and let's work with our wrap wire. The wrap wire you're going to be using today is a little easier to use than what I usually teach in because I'm not there with you. We're going to be using an 18 gauge half round, half hard wire. So let's go ahead and measure and cut the 18 gauge half round, half hard that we need. You're eventually going to need 4 pieces. So what I'm going to do is straighten this first. And I'm going to give you some numbers here. I'm going to teach you how to do this, and then I'm going to tell you what to use, okay? But so that you know how I got there, to figure out the length I need of a wrap wire, what I do is I measure the width of a bundle, multiply that times 2, and then add a 1/16 of an inch for the edges, and that's like going around the bundle once. And as many wraps as you need, well, just multiply. And yeah, I know, it seems like there's a lot of math in this, but really there isn't. I do it all for you. So let's measure and cut this 18 gauge half round wire into 4 4-inch pieces. The difference between wire wrapping and wire artistry really lies in the consistency and the quality of the wraps. I'm going to teach you how to make perfect wraps every single time, although it might take you a little bit of practice, okay? Don't get discouraged. Yours are not going to look like mine the first time around. I've been doing this for a little while. So have patience with yourself and have confidence. It's a lot of fun and it just takes a little bit to get the hang of it. Now, to make a nice wrap, I'm going to have to use my flat nose pliers. And the way I choose my flat nose pliers is because they have to be thin enough at the end of one jaw to represent the width of a bundle, okay? Because this is where we're going to make our hook. Let me tell you a little bit about this half-round wire. One of the reasons that it's easier for you to learn to make wire wraps with it is because it's thinner than a square wire. It's actually heavier than most people would use to teach wrapping, but it works beautifully. Now, picture a circle, as I mentioned at the beginning when I was talking about wire, and cut that circle in half. That's your half-round wire, meaning it looks like a half a moon. The back of the wire, or wrong side, is the flat side, okay? The right side, or domed side, is what you want to show. So I'm going to take the inside, or flat side, of the wire and put it inside my pliers. Now I want my hook to be about as long as my bundle is wide. That's pretty good. So I can actually use the entire width of my tool to make my hook. Now, this is exactly how I do it every single time, okay? In this position, your hand wants to go like this every single time, okay? You want it to do this. It doesn't hurt. So, with this hand, your non-dominant, working with your dominant hand, whether it wants to or not, we're going to use the non-dominant hand as a platform, okay? So, I'm going to take my wire and I'm going to bend my wire very tightly over the jaw of my flat nose pliers. Just like this. Okay? Now, I'm going to offset my hook, meaning I'm going to hold the tail and bend the hook I made slightly away. Now, this one is really exaggerated so that you can see what I mean. Okay? Anytime you make a hook that's offset, you want it offset in the direction that you're coming from. So this is the back of my bundle. There's my mark. My offset is headed that way because I'm going to be wrapping from this mark toward the center. Make sense? Okay, so let me get positioned here and let's start wrapping. The hardest part is actually holding this hook on this bundle, okay? And I'm going to hold my fingers up here to hold this wire on. Now I'm going to take my flat nose pliers and I'm going to hit this hook wire right here at the bottom because it's only going to bend at the bend. It's not going to bend anywhere else. So why put your pliers all the way up here, okay? Save your strength and just hit it at the bottom where the wire is going to bend. Now, take your pliers up to the very top of your bundle. Stay on this wrap wire. And this is the only time the index finger gets to touch the wire, ever, okay? I'm going to press this wire with the index finger over the top of my pliers, which really is in essence over the very top of my bundle. You see? Okay? Now, because you have to see what you're doing, I'm going to rotate this piece like a propeller. Okay? I'm still looking at the back. I'm going to hold my bundle with my flat nose pliers anywhere on the right side that's comfortable. Now, keeping my non-dominant hand on the top is important because in this position, my thumb can only go up and down, okay? The index finger can do anything, and we don't want this wire to go anywhere. We want it to go straight. So in this position, using my thumb, I'm going to tell the wire where to go, okay? Put it there at the bottom with a tool. See how it lays down nice? Go to the top of the bundle, still on the wrap wire, and support it. And use your thumb and press 90 degrees over the top of your plier, which is actually over the top of your bundle. Rotate this so you can see what you're doing. Tell the wire where to go. Put it there with your tool. Support it at the top. Press 90 degrees. Roll it. Hold it. Tell it where to go. Put it there with your tool. Support at the top. 90 degrees. Now, if we look at this, you'll see that I have made 2 complete wraps. I have taken my wire and gone completely around my bundle twice. Now, we want a minimum of 5 wraps to show on the front, which is going to make 6 wires showing on the back. So, if you need to, rewind me. Let's start again, and let's continue wrapping. Now, when we get back to the point where we're ready to trim our wire, go ahead and remember everything that we want to keep is from the flat side. And I'm going to trim this wire so it's 1 wire below the edge. Yeah, maybe wind it up a little shorter. That's okay. And then I'm going to put it down. If I'd put it down first, I would have had to lift it and then trim it, giving me a curve that would be very difficult to get rid of. Now, let's look at this. The wrap's pretty good, except out here it's a little bit flared because it's always difficult to get that first wrap on. So let me show you how to fix that, okay? I'm going to lift this up and slightly unwrap just the first wrap, okay? Going to grab on it here, bend it down where it needs to be, roll it over, put it back, and now, I can see, you may not be able to, but there's like 1 millimeter there that I was off. And when I come to the end, I'm going to grab onto the wire, pull it where it needs to be, and then place it down. Looks a whole lot better. So now I have 5 wraps to show. Okay. Again, you have a diagram that shows you this. I'm going to show you where I'm going to wrap, and then while we work together, you can listen to music, watch me, do whatever, and let's come back together when it's time to finish off the ends. We've wrapped from the first line toward the center. We're going to wrap from the second line back toward the first. Skip the middle altogether, leave that wide open that goes on the top of your arm, okay? The mark after the center, we're going to repeat, but reverse our moves. We're going to wrap this toward the end, come to the last mark, and wrap that back toward the center, okay? And that's how we're going to get this configuration where we have 2 inches in the center, which is 1 inch on each side of the center open, giving us that really pretty design. Okay, so go ahead and make your second hook with your half round wire, and your second set of wraps will begin at this mark and work back toward the first set you did, 5 to show. Okay, I am on my last set of wraps here, and what I have to do is make sure that I'm consistent at both ends. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wraps here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wraps here. Okay, it's time to trim this one. And time for me to teach you how to finish this bracelet. Okay, so shake it out, give yourself a break. And let's remove all of the tape. I guarantee your bracelet's going to stay together, even though you might be going, oh no, all of the tape? No, really, seriously, it's okay. So, and if you have tape properly, you should be able to just unroll the bundle from the tape. Okay, so let's learn how to finish the bracelet. And while we do this, I have to tell you that all of the techniques I've been working with you on today are represented in about 85% of my personal designs. So you're already halfway there. As a technique instructor, you can use many of the techniques I teach in different projects. Now, what I'm doing here is I'm taking my flat nose pliers, I'm on the back of my bundle where my bindings begin and end and where my marks are, and I'm going to support my wrap wires by holding onto them with the flat nose pliers. Now, if you have muscles or really strong fingernails, you can do this manually. However, I am going to use my chain nose pliers, and I'm going to go inside my bracelet, grab onto the construction wires that were formula length, remember those? And I'm going to get those started, headed toward the back side of my bracelet, okay? After I have them started with the chain nose, it's going to be easy for me to use my thumb to press these wires up so that they are now 90 degrees over the edge of my flat nose pliers, okay? Now, I'm going to take my finger because I want a soft angle this time. I'm going to press these wires down over the wraps that are underneath them, just far enough that I can still get a pair of cutters in there. Remembering that everything from the flat side up I'm keeping, I'm going to trim these wires. Let me get this around here so we can all see what I'm doing. Okay, I'm going to trim these wires so that they are about 1/2 millimeter or like 1 wire width, wider and longer than the wraps they're going over. Just going to cut these. Now these little wire ends will fly, okay? So be sure that you keep your hand over them to keep them where they need to be. All right, so we've got that nice and smooth. I'm going to use my chain nose pliers now because they're flat on the inside, round on the outside. I'm going to place them on the very ends of my wires. I'm going to roll my tool a couple of times. What I'm doing here is I'm taking the burrs off the end of these wires, okay? And I'm also giving them a little bit of a curve. Okay, do you see that? Okay. And now I'm going to use the flat nose pliers to put these in place, meaning I'm going to put them over the wraps. Now, those should be as smooth as silk. If not, they will be the next time. That is locked in over the wrap wires. The burrs are gone. My eye end is fine. It's a little funky right now. We're going to fix that in a moment. And now we're going to go to the opposite end, the hook end. And we're going to repeat the same procedure. Use your flat nose pliers to hold the wraps where they need to be. Use your chain nose pliers to begin bending the construction and the edge of the eye wires back. Okay, once you've gotten them started, you can use your fingers to bend these 90 degrees over the edge of the jaw of your flat nose pliers. Okay, release your tool grip. Use your thumb to press these wires over the wraps so that you have a soft angle. I'm going to do these individually this time. Okay, there's a soft angle that I can still get underneath with my cutters. I'm keeping what's up there, so that's where my flat side is. And I'm going to trim these wires so they are 1 wire width longer than the wraps that are underneath them. Okay. Deburr the ends with your chain nose pliers, and these are 2 groups. I'll do each side separately. Just roll while you're giving them a slight curl. I'm going to do the same on the other side. Okay, I'm going to put them into place with my flat nose pliers. And have you noticed I'm just hitting these on the corner where those wires are going to bend? I'm not going up here, I'm hitting them where they're going to bend. This is kind of fun. I love this part. It's like magic. They just like go down where they're supposed to be. Ta-da! Okay. Done. Now, let's talk about fixing our funk in the back. which I'm going to do with my flat nose pliers. Okay, let's just make that where it's supposed to be. Repeat all of our moves. And let's make our hook. With the hook, we already have our lock, okay? So I'm going to use my round nose pliers, and I'm going to place them about 1/3 of the way down the jaw, and I'm going to place these so that when I make my bend, it's going to be at the halfway point on my hook, okay? So and again, I'm going to roll this hook toward the front because I don't want it digging into my arm when I wear it. So let's just roll the hook toward the bracelet, like that. And let's turn up the lock. Okay, with the tip of the round nose pliers, I'm just gonna roll that lock up. Okay, so we have something that looks like this. I'm going to tip my hook back just a hair. All right, that's all there is to it. Now, let's curve our bracelet. And I'm going to shape this on my favorite bracelet mandrel, okay? It's just a little old medicine bottle. It's easily replenished. There are lots of them around all the time, and it has just the right amount of give. By the way, I probably should tell you that this is, I think it's like, yeah, okay. It's 45 millimeters in diameter. So if you can find something that's between 35 and 45 millimeters in diameter, you're good to go. Okay, to shape is so easy. I'm going to take the eye end of my bracelet, and I'm going to hold it with my thumb against the bottom of my bottle, and I'm going to bring my other hand up and start curving my bracelet. Okay, you see that nice little arch? Now let's repeat this on the opposite end. I'm going to hold the wrap with my thumb, support my bracelet at the 3rd wrap down, and draw the bracelet around the bottle. Okay, there we go. Now, let's do the center, the 2 inches that I would not let you wrap. Let's bounce those 2. Gives it just enough of an arch. Now, remember in the beginning when I taught you to take the curve out of the wire? Well, now we're going to reverse that and put the curve into the wire. So, using the same procedure, but your fingers in opposite directions than we did before, I'm going to work my bracelet just to the side wraps, pressing up with my index finger and down over it with my thumb. Okay, starting right here, and we're just going to do this every 1/4 of an inch. Okay, and to the other side. Now, I've gotten this to the point where I can almost hook it. Actually, I could. Let's put a little bit more of a curve here. We don't want to force this because I don't want to kink the wire. If it's curved, you can always uncurve or recurve it, but kinking, okay. There we go, that's better. Now let's hook this, and you can see pretty serious here that the shape is not quite where I want it to be. So I'm going to have to come into this wrap with my flat nose pliers and give it a little bit of a tweak. That's better. Let's tweak the other wrap. Okay. Now, I'm going to shape the rest of this by hand by pulling on it and by pushing down on the front of the bracelet with my fingers. And you don't need muscles to do this. You have just finished your first serious traditional wire jewelry bracelet, okay? Remember I told you earlier that the techniques used in today's lesson can go many other places? I'll share just a couple of them with you. One of the most popular ways to set a cabochon is to use a wire frame. Check it out. Guess what? That's the bracelet. You just did that. Add a bail and you can now frame cabochons or coins. How about taking just a few pieces of wire, like 3, 5, 7, you know, artists and odd numbers, wrap them together, add a few beads and other techniques, simple loops, And now you can create earrings. You can make collars. Think about the possibilities. It really is amazing. Traditional wire jewelry design is fun, it's addicting, and you can be so creative. For more information about the supplies and techniques used, visit jewelschool.com. And if you have a question or a challenge, you can always email me, dale@jtv.com. You know, I was just looking at the bracelet we made today. Wasn't that fun? You've probably figured out by now why wire is my favorite medium. And you know, the more you practice with it, the more addicting it becomes. So keep on practicing, and I'll see you again here in Jewel School.